Hi everybody, this is Maya Good and this is the AuthorTube newbie tag. Please pardon the background noise, there's a parade and I have roommates playing music, but we're just gonna forge on ahead because I'm pretty excited about this tag. We haven't really had an AuthorTube tag, and so let's get right into it. This tag was created by JennaTheDarkOne, and I just want to say thank you, Jenna. It's going to be really cool to get to know some of the authors on YouTube a little better through this tag. The first question is, how did you find AuthorTube? Actually, I had, like a couple years ago, I had done some videos where I had tried to like call it RightTube, and there wasn't really that big of a community, and so I just kind of faltered. I didn't really make a whole lot of videos. It was kind of a lonely time out there for authors. But recently, I was just messing around on my computer and I found someone that did the AuthorTube tag. I was like, oh, there's more authors now. And so I started looking around, and that's how I discovered AuthorTube. Question number 2, what genres do you write in? I write literary fiction. I do write some poetry, but I pretty much write literary fiction. Some of my literary fiction starts to dip its toes a little bit in horror, or it'll dip its toes a little bit in like magical realism, but not that much. It just creeps up every now and then. My current novel, it's definitely literary fiction, but it has some paranormal aspects, but I'm a little hesitant to call it paranormal because if it was a book with Christian aspects, it wouldn't be called paranormal fiction, whereas this book has some African traditional aspects to it. And so I do resist that label for that book, especially considering the themes in the book. It doesn't really fit. What is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? I write adult fiction. I typically write third person from a really, really deep, close point of view. Every once in a while, when a story just isn't quite working, I might do first person, not for really long works typically. I've had a couple short stories that are in first person. Are you a plotter, pantser, or plantser? I used to be a pantser, but I couldn't finish anything. So I am a thoroughly converted plotter, right down to my short stories. I literally plot my short stories. The only type of writing that I really do where I don't plot is poetry, unless it's a poem that's actually telling a story, in which case I may even plot that. Are you self-published, published, or yet to be published? I have 4 short stories and several others in the pipeline that don't really fit any journal, and they have a theme that runs through them of the innocence of children is lost on the children, and those I've self-published 4 of those. I will self-publish the rest of those. But everything else, I am aiming towards traditional publishing. What publishing company, literary agent, printing agent are you represented by or use? If you're not yet published, what is your dream publishing house or literary agent? I don't have one because I've been really just focusing on improving my writing, tightening my writing, doing a lot more reading, reading more closely. And so the thought of having to do research on agents and publishers is just overwhelming. I know I'm going to have to do it next year when I prepare to start sending out query letters for my novel, but just thinking about it kind of makes me a little apoplectic. What AuthorTube related videos can we expect to find from your channel? I have a couple already. I typically write more like journal, what I've learned, what my experience is type videos. In the past, I did have a series where I pretty much outlined and brainstormed my novel live on air, and it was like 26 hours worth of content, but I have since pulled those videos because since I've decided that that book is going to be hopefully my first novel that gets published, I just went ahead and pulled them. I do have some videos on preparing for NaNoWriMo from last year, but generally most of my videos are just my writing experience, things that I'm learning, experiences that I am having, things I've read that are really helping me. When did you start writing? I started writing when I was really small. I started writing probably 2nd or 3rd grade, and then by middle school I switched over into poetry, and then when I was about 18 years old, I stopped all writing for a decade, just entirely. And then coming out of that, I would try to do NaNoWriMo every once in a while. I would write a poem every once in a blue moon, and then I didn't become serious about my writing until about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. What was the first story you ever wrote? My first story was called The Spooky Halloween. It was written on lined paper that I tore out of a notebook and stapled together to bind it, and I illustrated it, and my mom kept it for years. Matter of fact, I think I have it in storage somewhere. It was about several kids that are friends, and they're going out on Halloween, and then something miraculous and spooky happens. And I think I was in about 3rd grade. What authors have inspired your writing the most? I would say the authors that have inspired, there's so many, because especially because I've been doing so much reading lately on writing, that's really a hard question. I would definitely say John Lindquist definitely inspired my writing as far as being honest and getting right in there and not being afraid. His novel Let Me In had some aspects that most authors would really back away from that I hadn't seen in other books, and it really struck me on a writer level that that's something that is important in fiction. I would also say Toni Morrison. I read a lot of her when I was younger, and very specifically Beloved. Beloved definitely is an ancestor of my current novel for sure. Other novels that have inspired me. Samantha Lang Chang. She wrote All Is Forgotten, Nothing Is Lost. And that novel really, really touches me. Paul Beatty's The Sellout was extremely inspirational to me as far as using language in an interesting way. As far as older works that I read when I was younger, I've read Anna Karenina at least 12 times. I used to read it annually. I haven't done it in a few years. Definitely inspires me. The poet there's something about her poetry that is so just gut honest that I definitely inspires my fiction. Even though she's a poet, I feel a little bit of her on my shoulder sometimes when I'm writing. And there are so many others, through the last 2 years now of doing Literary Roadhouse, I have read a couple hundred stories, both on the podcast and outside of the podcast. And short stories has probably been the biggest inspiration for my fiction, even my long fiction. I feel like short story is the pinnacle of the art. And if I can write a novel the way the best people write short stories, then I will become the writer that I want to be, to have that tightness, to have that kind of impact, to have that level of just pure craft is something that I really strive for. So let's see here. Do you schedule your writing sessions or simply get to writing whenever you find time? I wish I scheduled my writing sessions, but honestly, I can't schedule my life, so that doesn't happen. I tend to write whenever I have time. My work schedule is all over the place. I sleep all over the place. I wake up all over the place. So no writing schedule here. I would like one though, but in order to have a writing schedule, I have to have a sleep schedule. Yeah, that's the problem. 12, do you type on a computer? Sorry, like I said, parade. Do you schedule your, oops, I just did that one. Do you type on a computer, typewriter, write everything by hand, or a blend of those? Where do you write in general? I write wherever I can. I typically write short fiction, fiction that I feel really confident, fiction that I just know that story at a gut level. I write those on computer. Fiction that I'm struggling with, or fiction that is just really, really emotional, I write by hand. I'm very particular when I write fiction by hand. This is gonna be a little anal, so bear with me. When I write fiction by hand, I use my very, very special pen. It is a Pilot Custom 74. It is a limited edition purple with sparklies. I love this pen because it is so smooth and it feels so good in my hand. It's the only pen that I can write for hours and not have my hand hurt. And it's just so smooth that I hardly even have to touch the paper. I love this pen with a passion. I think I did a review on it on my channel. And then when I write fiction by hand, I only use one type of notebook. Yeah, I told you. I'm that kind of writer. I use the Nanami paper notebook. I use the writer version, so it has lines, but the lines are like little itsy bitsy dots across the page, and it's made with Tomoe River paper. So I love this journal because, again, it just works really good with my pen, and every time I open it, it just feels like my paper loves me. And if they ever stop making it, I'll be really sad. But there are other companies that do make journals with Tomoe River paper, and I would just switch to another one of those. There's something about this paper that just makes me want to write. And what are you looking forward to now that you're part of AuthorTube? I'm really looking forward to being able to put into the search box AuthorTube and have everybody's videos show up so that I'm not hunting and pecking and trying to find everybody individually like I've been doing for the last 4 years. And so that's the big thing. I really would like to have such a strong community similar to what we get with booktube community. The booktube community is really tight, it's growing. We're getting a lot more diverse booktubers, a lot of older booktubers, a lot more racially diverse booktubers from other countries, booktubers speaking in other languages. That's something that's really been happening in the last year or two. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of growth and that kind of just pure community support on YouTube in an author community. So on that note, I think I'm done. If you like this tag, I'm going to include the originator of the tag in the down bar along with all the questions. Please, if you like this tag, go ahead and do it. I think it'll be great to get to know everybody. I don't know if Tamara Woods has done the tag. I should have looked that up before I got on here. If she hasn't, she should do it. Same thing with Steve. I love you, Steve. You are just a light in my day. And I would love to learn more about your writing and what you like to write and just how you do it. And who else? You know what? My favorite two guys on BookTube that record together, Stripped Cover Lit. If they haven't done it, they should definitely do it as well. Dang! My people are loud when they're celebrating. Ciao.